I'm here with Chris Rios of Blue Rock Search. And Chris, I'm hoping that you can briefly share a little bit about your work at Blue Rock Search. Tell the audience, what you do there.
Sure, Gabe. Thank you so much. First of all, I am the CX practice leader here at Blue Rock Search. We are an executive search firm focused in three different areas: HR, franchise leadership, and customer experience. So I oversee the CX desk, supporting organizations looking to increase CX capability at the director level and above. I've also created a CX ecosystem for our company. And we've shown year-over-year growth of anywhere up to 10 to 30% in the last 3 years because of it. So I love that. I'm very proud of that. And finally, because of my network, I'm able to provide opportunities to bridge the gap between CX executives across company and industry. And I've paired people together that might not otherwise cross paths and help them get to know one another. So those are my key successes at Blue Rock.
Chris, that's fantastic. And you mentioned that your focus is on those director level and above CX roles. So,
Yep.
We've got an audience of global CX practitioners, many of whom are very interested in those director level and above roles. So can you give us a sense of what is the landscape right now? How competitive is the job market right now for those leadership roles?
Yeah, this one is probably one of the tougher questions I get. And so I'll try to be as careful as I can on how I answer this. First and foremost, it is highly competitive, but maybe not necessarily for the reasons that you may be accustomed to hearing. One, too many talented CX professionals are out there, and there are not enough true CX roles to fill, for that. So that you have a plethora of talent and not enough opportunities to go around. And when you think about that, you have a floodgate of talent without sufficient opportunities to place them. Frustration in the community grows. People want to grow, they want to develop, they want to evolve, and of course they want to make money for their evolving skills. However, the opportunities to make moves at the top are limited. For one, many companies are still just talking about CX as an idea, but don't know where to start. So that's problematic. If you do happen to get it, well, you run into the risk of no true support, right? Buy-in continues to be problematic. And while companies may have a CX program, it typically is relegated, meaning because there isn't enough buy-in from the executive leadership, it's siloed to one particular business, resources are not provided, so there's no money, there's no people, team support, those kinds of things. Technology could be an issue. And third, I think a lot of companies are way too focused on the data piece of it, right? So many organizations, have their eyes set on developing voice of customer or journey mapping specifically, but then do little with applying what they learn from that information. And so there's no true translation to actionable activities. This is very, very seriously problematic from the vantage point of you have director level folks and above who are trying to get those jobs and be strategic, but they're not available. And then finally, CX technology is the shiny new penny, and it has been for quite some time. So many companies are buying CX technology to prove they're moving the needle, but many don't have a truly impactful CX program that leverages the power of that technology to be effective. So those are the key things. That's why it's so highly competitive.
Yeah. So we have, few roles that are, sort of these true CX roles, a lot of competition for them in the market right now. So let's talk about key differentiators for candidates for these leadership roles. So in this program, we've been talking about CCXP and how some of our current CCXPs are, making the most of that credential. As you are looking to find qualified candidates for these roles, how does the presence of the CCXP certification on someone's CV impact your perception of that candidate and their suitability for leading these organizational CX programs?
Yeah, I immediately have a hedonistic bias towards those individuals who have the CCXP. One, it creates a truly competitive advantage. It delineates you as someone who is serious about CX. It identifies you as an expert in the 6 key disciplines of CX and proves that you can probably lead a truly strategic CX function for an organization where customer experience or customer centricity is important. Furthermore, the CCXP provides credibility to the profession at large. So much like having a JD, an MD, or a PhD after your name, A CX professional that has a CCXP certification or identification allows them to be recognized for their dedication to the discipline of customer centricity. And finally, for companies, having a CCXP certified CX leader provides prestige to that company as an organization that is serious about their customers. What they are saying to the marketplace is that they're quite methodic in their approach to listening to customers. They're honoring what they hear by doing the necessary tasks associated with closing the loop with them and showing their long-term commitment to sustainable transformation. So the CCXP does amazing things for the professional that decides to go down that pathway, take the test and pass. It just sets them apart from everybody else.
Yeah, and I'm sort of in my mind coming back to what you were saying about some of the challenges that people can face when they walk into these roles of, not having that buy-in or cross-functional support, and, having that, credibility in addition to the competence and experience that will help somebody overcome some of those institutional challenges. That seems to me to be a huge, huge potential benefit.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. The funny thing is, and much like the MDs and the JDs, it takes a special individual to go down the pathway, right, to acquire that certification. It really means you're spending a lot of time studying, but you're also applying the things that you're learning about in your organization, and things are changing within the company. You can't do it in a vacuum, right? You don't get the CCXP for nothing. You have to do something with it, and hopefully you're able to have opportunities where it will be taken advantage of.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Chris.
Sure.
I'm sure you look at a lot of resumes. You have a bird's eye view of what the market is right now for CX leadership positions. What's your core piece of advice that you would share with those who are seeking a CX leadership role?
Gabe, I wish I could pare it down to just one piece of advice, but it's multi-pronged, to be honest with you. So I would say take a multi-pronged approach. The first thing I would say is educate yourself, continue to grow and develop, especially for any gaps that you may have. So find roles that will provide experiences to fill those gaps. I would also say from an education perspective is to get your CCXP. And if you're not ready to do that, study. Number two is open yourself to networking. Build a relationship with a dedicated search partner. Connect with colleagues and other companies who may have roles that aren't posted yet. I would say join the CXPA as well. It's a great resource for individuals. Number three, polish your resume. Ask if your resume reflects who you are. If you were the hiring authority, what would you hire yourself for? And if you can't answer that, then change your resume. You want to make sure you're telling a good story about yourself, without over amping on all the things that are not really relevant. Number four, I would say align your social media exposure as well. Make sure you're telling complementary stories between platforms. People have access to your information in a variety of ways, whether it's LinkedIn or any other platform. Make sure they're complementary. Don't be redundant. Complementary is better. And then finally, be patient. In your effort to find another role, be open to the possibility that you may have to go sideways before you go up. That's totally okay. You may have to recognize too that it may take a little longer to find that ideal role. And I know we all want to keep growing and evolving, but sometimes a sideways step is better than no step or going backwards. So you get in that role, create for yourself some kind of value add. And then in your current role, like I said, keep creating value add opportunities for yourself, right? You're the only one that knows about customer experience. So create for yourself opportunities where you can shine. Lead by example, continue to be enthusiastic, even if things aren't moving as quickly as you had hoped or anything like that. Those are the key things I would say. It's multi-pronged, but pay attention to those small details in all of those aspects. And really, it's quite personal for you. So just focus your attention in all those areas.
Yeah, Chris, I think that's such critical advice, not just for those who are actively seeking a new role, but for those who may be passively seeking a role, or simply just kind of staying on top of your network and your credentials, that it's not an environment where we can just afford to just sort of sit back and think that, I'm just going to just sort of wait to do these things, because if it becomes a need down the road, it's important to have invested your time in your network, in your resume, in your career.
Yeah, I think people, their enthusiasm wanes for their personal evolution when their CX platform or their efforts within the company are not going as quickly as they hoped. So there's this dual kind of pressure around, hey, I want to get a new job. What do I do? But at the same time, you have to stay on top of your game. So you have to be very, very focused, and it requires a special person to be really diligent about what they're trying to accomplish. And again, it's twofold. No matter how fast or slow it's going, there's always room for improvement on both sides, internally at your organization, as well as in your resume. Constantly put updates on your resume that say, I've accomplished this, I've accomplished that, I moved the needle here, we increased this percentage that way, or whatever. Those are all critical things. Don't wait till you need a job before you're fixing your resume, right? So those are hard things to sort of pay attention to. You got to be diligent all the time.
Chris Rios is CX practice leader at Blue Rock Search. He can be reached at chris@bluerocksearch.com. And Chris, what are the circumstances in which someone should connect with you or reach out?
Well, I think that if you are at the point in your career where you're ready to make a change, but you're not necessarily ready now, that's the best time to connect with me, right? You want to map a plan to get to the stage where you're like ready to go. Don't wait until the last possible second where either you're going to be a victim of a change within your organization and you're out. That's too late. You want to start building steam towards making a change over time, and recognize as well that it may take that same amount of time, anywhere from 3 to 6 months, where you find that ideal role. So be very, very patient. And those are the things I would do right away.
Thank you, Chris, for your time.
No worries at all, Dave. It was such a great pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon.
Very good. Thank you.